So the Milgard Success Center and the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, together with Amazon, are proud to host our first ever Pathways to Diversity in STEM panel here at the Tacoma campus. This event has been made possible due to the generous contribution of Amazon. So thank you, Amazon. Welcome also to the Tacoma High School students who will be watching this recording. The need to increase the number of college graduates in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines, particularly underrepresented students of color, and to place them in good jobs is an issue of national importance and debate. We are delighted to welcome our distinguished panel of speakers who are going to speak to this issue from their personal perspectives. Please join me in welcoming 4 Milgard alums, and particularly an alum from Washington State University. And I would like to start with him. So let's give him a warm, husky welcome, Matthew Voter. He's a corporate controller at Rainier Industries. Welcome, Matthew. Victor Martinez, business intelligence engineer at Amazon and a Milgard alum. Gauri Patil, a technical product manager at Forum Solutions, Milgard alum. Aaron Rumpf, a BI engineer at Amazon, Milgard alum, welcome. And Mandla Kawanda, tax manager at Deloitte, and also Milgard alum. So we have about 50 minutes with them, and this is how it'll go. Each panelist will introduce themselves, where they work, the job they do, and share a personal story of their journey as a STEM student. Then they will touch upon some key decisions that they faced and the obstacles they overcame on this path, whether they pursued a postgraduate certification or degree and why, and they will share one piece of advice that they wish they had received when they were a student. And then we'll open it up for questions. We are also expecting our chancellor, our new Chancellor Lang, to be visiting, and if she does, we'll introduce all of you to her as well. So take it away, panel. Thank you and welcome.
Hey. So hi, my name is Matt Voter. I am a corporate controller at Rainier Industries. So you might ask what a corporate controller is. A corporate controller is directly responsible for producing accurate and timely financial statements to the CFO of the company and to the board of directors, as well as controlling the flow of cash in and out of the company. Usually the corporate controller has a small staff of accountants that report directly to the corporate controller, and they perform some of the other basic functions like accounts payable, accounts receivable, collections, payroll, and general ledger management. For a lot of you, I'm not really sure how many of you are accounting majors. I just recently learned that accounting is part of STEM. It's quite amusing. But also that I learned very quickly along my path that there is an important, let me rephrase this really quickly for you. When I first started out, I learned from starting I didn't start school the old-fashioned way. I was a commuter kid. I started working at a basic fast food restaurant, which a lot of kids start to do, and then I grew from there and I learned about an opportunity within the office. I joined the office of that same company and started just as a basic receptionist. When the corporate controller of that company decided to start handing me things that they really needed help with, and I started performing them, and they realized that I did a pretty good job at it, they started to say, okay, you can do more of this, do more of this. And they started feeding me more, and that got me into doing accounting in the first place. But then I hit a roadblock. I didn't have the education necessary to go beyond what I was allowed to do. So although they were feeding me more and more information, and more projects and jobs related to accounting, they directly told me, get your education, you can go further. A lot of you, since you're here, you're already in school, so great, good job, you're already on that first step. But once you have that education, beyond just work skills and life skills, a lot of these employers want to see that you can actually go to school, learn the basics of what you're wanting to do, and then come back and perform at a higher level. And that's what my employer encouraged me to do. If I had one thing I'd like to recommend that everybody learn here is that technology is one of the most important key aspects of any job that you're going to be doing in the future, and this applies to accounting. When you're starting in accounting, there is a software stack that you're given, and that software stack can be in what we call an ERP system, which is what handles all the accounting transactions. It can be other pieces of add-on software that talk with that ERP system. And when you first get into that position, you're going to learn how to work with these pieces of software. But usually, in order to grow within your career, that's just not good enough. You can learn how to do how to work with the ERP software well, but you need to learn how to work within that software even deeper. A lot of the software within it contains databases that, if you learn how to use relational databases, you can go so much further into that ERP system that you can extract data that you wouldn't be able to in the front end, manipulate it or transform it into something that's more useful to management, and make things a lot easier for you so you're efficient, you're making your job more efficient, and you're allowing yourself to grow so that you can take on more duties. Now, as for if I had a mentor to this, yes. When I first started and I first got into the office, the first person I interacted with was my corporate controller, and that's the person that took me under her wing, gave me so much work because she saw that at the very least I was pretty good at performing accounting tasks without an education, and kept on feeding me. And then at the end, when she realized that I could continue to go further but I needed an education, she gave me that extra push. She said, go get your education and you can grow so much. And that is me.
Okay, my name is Mandla. We just thought the little brother from Wazoo should speak first, because, so I'm a tax manager from Deloitte. I went here for my undergrad. I transferred from the Tacoma Community College, went here for my undergrad, did my master's here. I'm basically a child of this campus. And I work in the Global Employer Services function, which is short, it's usually commonly known as GES, or mobility tax. What we basically do is help employers kind of just navigate their relationship with employing and managing their workforce. So that starts with, how they hire employees, how they compensate employees, when the employees move around, how they navigate the tax landscape. That comes with that. And then we go on the flip side of that and also look at the employee. As the employee moves around, or as the global worker moves around, what are the tax implications of that move? So for instance, you've arrived in a new tax jurisdiction. What are the tax implications where you just came? What are the tax implications of where you just came from? So our best, I think that's probably, put in a nutshell, the simplest way of explaining the kind of work that we do. It varies and it expands pretty quickly. So it's one of those things that look like a small aspect of tax code, but when you just go into it, you suddenly realize how big the whole process is. And then for myself, I think one thing that was difficult as I was getting into this, to his point too, I just found out that I'm a scientist, which I didn't know, and it's pretty astounding. Because I was like, how does accounting fit in STEM? And I was like, well, we just got approval to call accounting a science. I was like, well, okay, I'm a scientist now. Let's add that to my LinkedIn. The one challenge I think that I faced, I was what I would call a great graduate, which means I was already in my 30s when I started, school here, and I was married. I had a kid. The challenge that you face in that situation is usually financial, right? When I moved here, we checked our bank. We had $200, like the last amount of money that got us to my wife's family's house, and I knew I wanted to do accounting. There's a long story to that. I don't want to get too much into it. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and if anyone knows anything about Zimbabwe, you will know why economics is such an interesting subject, because they had the worst inflation in the world, and I think they still do, So that's the one thing. We have gold medals and just the longest run of being the #1 worst inflation rates in the world, going for about 25 years. And so economics has always been an interest. Anyone in the streets in Zimbabwe could give you just like the most complex economics concepts, right, in practice, that you would be just surprised at how much they were. So for instance, you go to Zimbabwe, you have $50 and you want to buy lunch, right? Zimbabwe uses all currencies in order to transact. So any currency that holds water, Zimbabwe uses it. So you buy $50 you buy lunch for, let's say lunch is worth $5. You give a person $50. They will give you your change in Botswana Pula, Chinese yuan, British pounds, and candy. So it's like your change will be a mix of that, and somehow they can tell you how much all that is worth in US dollars. And so that was always fascinating to learn about. And so economics, business, the whole interaction of business and community was something that was of significant interest to me. So when I came here, I really wanted to pursue that. But the challenge, of course, is always financial. Like, how do you pay your way through it? And I think the solution, I guess, or what came to my rescue at that point was the relationships that I formed along the way, whether it's mentorship, or whether it's benefactors, or whether it's just networking relationships that you develop along the way. Those are the things that I felt like took me through a lot of the hurdles. Just applying, like I was constantly applying for scholarships. Like it was a full-time job to apply for grants and scholarships, and the Milgard scholarship or any of those resources, I took advantage of those, and I constantly put my name in the hat so that, and that helped me finance my way through school, and that was really helpful. If there was one piece of advice that I would give, something that I'm still learning today, is how to organize my time. I am super terrible at it. Like priorities, you have a lot of priorities right now as you're juggling as a student. Maybe you have 3 classes, you have a job, you have just, some things to do with the kids. But those priorities tend to multiply as you progress in your career. And how you manage that is very important in terms of just like, keeping everything in perspective. Because it is probable that if you have 20 things flying, if you're juggling 20 balls at the same time, one is probably going to hit the ground. And so the science of it is how to manage that. And maybe that's why I don't feel like I deserve that science degree or that science title, because I haven't figured out the time management aspect of it. Yeah. So I think I would say, to his words, that's me.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Nice to see everyone out and still in mass, but good to see everyone in person. I recently graduated from MSBA, so I'm a Milgard alum. My name is Gauri Patel. I currently work as a technical product manager for a large global technology client with Forum Solutions. To explain what technical product management is, basically you are a product manager, but for technical requirements, specifically the engineering requirements of a product. You are a subject matter expert for the product and kind of act a liaison between the engineering team, the business team, the accounts, marketing, and other stakeholders. I'm looking at my notes, so don't think I'm reading my messages. And you survey customers, interview them, or work with clients to understand their pain points and problems and translate them into requirements. And then you also build a roadmap for the products to align with those requirements and with the leadership goals. And basically, you're an advocate for your own product. The way they say a product manager is CEO of your product, so you take care of your product and see that it gets to the market properly, it is successful, and you act as a subject matter expert for it. Now, that's a very niche field, and the way I got to it is a long journey. But I would say right from high school, I knew I would be taking something related to science. I wanted to be either a teacher, a scientist, an astronaut. It got clearer and clearer later on. Something that helped me figure out what I want to be or where I want to work was understanding my skills. And I would say early on, right now, even if you're a graduate, undergraduate, whatever education level you are, I would say try different things. I got to know I am creative because I was participating in arts at high school. So I knew I needed to design something. I got to know that I'm good at coding because I went to a summer camp after my 10th grade. So I came to know that, okay, I'm good at coding. Or I went and joined council or a club, even in MSBA. So I got to know that, okay, I need to be somewhere I can talk, I can advocate, or I can, manage things. Still, I would say that even if you have chosen your stream, graduate, undergraduate, never hesitate to take turns or diverge from them, because I have navigated different routes or paths. I started as an engineer back in India, of course, and then I moved on here, start my family, and there was some career break, but then I again started as a project manager because I knew I wanted to be into management and again on that technical side. While I was still working in India as a software developer or consultant, I realized I am more interested in the design or the analytics part of it, and hence my graduate degree here in Milgard was Masters of Business Analytics. Business analysts, again, even though they work with data, they are making those business decisions and designing and working towards solutions that help make those business decisions. With my technical product management skills, I feel that I am aligning those software development, understanding, then my business analyst skills of understanding those requirements and then applying them to come together in a proper product which would help customers. Now, talking about challenges, it hasn't been particularly easy being from a different background back in India, or even being a woman. My family had no engineers, not my father's generation, not my grandfather's generation. They were all into small local businesses, and that's what was expected. You stayed close to family, run some small business, at the max what they could think that I could achieve, or I would be as a teacher in a nearby school. And so that was particularly a challenge for me when I decided that, oh, I want to do something in engineering, I want to build something, I want to create something, I had to face obstacles, whether it be family, whether it be society. And my first engineering fees, what you won't believe, was my mom's stash she had saved from her small local salon she was running. And that's how I got into engineering, basically. It meant everything to me at that point, and I'm glad that I went that way. And my family is now proud of me, thinking that, oh, she went against the stream and found her own way. So that's what my advice would be, like, don't be afraid to find your own way. The way I see STEM career or any other career that you would like to pursue is, don't try to fit into something that is out there and try to change or adapt to those skills or talents. I would say find what your talents are, what your skills are, and see if the career that out there which you want to pursue fits your skills and talents. Because you're going to work most of the time of the day. I spent 8 to 10 hours a day doing my work, and I got to love it. So that's what your motivation is going to be to work, and that's my piece of advice. Another thing was, again, when I mentioned about these challenges, was there are enough challenges already being from a diverse background, whether it be financial, whether it be due to your background, or whether it be from the education that you had or not had. Don't let anything internal from your own motivation or drive stand in your way to achieve what you want to do. And that is absolutely not an acceptable excuse. There are enough things already that are outside which you need to overcome, and don't let yourself get into your own way. Thank you.
There we go. All right. Hi, everyone. I am Victor Martinez. I'm a business intelligence engineer at Amazon. I lead a team within our Amazon accounting corporate organization, specifically within the areas of AWS revenue, fixed assets, and leased assets. So that's basically all the buildings that we own, all of the factories and everything. It's kind of all the data my team handles. What a business intelligence engineer at Amazon does is we basically are a generalist role from a tech perspective. So we're able to build the visualization, build all the front-end analytics for our teams and partners, and also create all the use cases. So a big piece in the business intelligence space is also being able to create and think about what are the user cases, what's kind of the big roadmap on automating whatever piece of work it is that they're doing. And part of that is then creating visualization to support key initiatives, visualizing the data, and also getting those to whoever it is, directors, VPs, so on and so forth. The second piece of business intelligence engineer is the actual back end of the work. So understanding databases, SQL, how to get data from A to Z using Python or whatever it is. Aaron here's much smarter on that piece than me. But having an understanding of that space. And the final piece of a business intelligence engineer, that's the generalist piece, is also understanding regression and understanding machine learning and how we apply then the back-end data and what we want on the visual piece to then, well, what's the actual research we need to do to get to that answer? We don't specialize in any of those areas. A data scientist specializes in the regression piece. A data engineer specializes in the SQL backend, and a business analyst specializes in the visual piece and business gathering, requirements gathering piece. But we kind of hold the fort on all of those in our space. And so my team, we have people in all of those areas to do so. And specifically in the accounting space, what we're doing is helping automate all the manual effort that the accountants do to help them spend a lot more of their time analyzing and not working in Excel or whatever other tools, consulting on any of our machine learning projects, and additionally just building data marts for our users to actually be able to quickly get to the data that they need without having to figure it out on their own. So that's what I do. From a personal story perspective, I was actually just thinking, so at least within Amazon, business intelligence in the accounting space is something new that myself and another friend of mine in the space actually created. About 3 years ago, we basically said business intelligence needs to be a thing at Amazon, not just something someone's there and kind of thinks about doing it, especially since at Amazon people like to rotate and change jobs all the time. You would lose that knowledge base quickly. So we basically decided we need to make this actually be a function. A lot of other spaces within Amazon already had BI engineering and business intelligence as a whole function, but within accounting, it was not a thing. And actually graduation day, that morning, I had to go present to my VP saying, this is why it needs to be a thing, and I ran late to my own graduation for the MSBA program here. So I also did the Master's of Science in Business Analytics here, and graduating from that was getting late to doing that. Kind of key factors of getting into STEM. I was actually originally a computer science major in my undergrad at Cal Poly Pomona, and I was an absolute terrible coder, like absolutely horrible. I got into intermediate Java and just my brain was not working with it, and ended up going into accounting. I loved accounting, and funny enough, I did not get my CPA because I decided, well, maybe I'll go into program management. Went over to program management when I moved from Boeing to Amazon. Did program management for a couple years, and then finally decided, hey, maybe I should go back into BI and coding and so on and so forth, because that's actually what I do like to do, and ended up doing my master's here. And during that master's is when my director, I was just staying late doing homework one night, and my director was still there. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm working on BI. And he's like, let's think about bringing that here. And that started the conversation. And so that brings me to the piece why postgraduate education is important. It helped me actually have the background I needed to actually move to a technical job role. So at Amazon, I was not in a technical job role. I was a program manager. And to move to that technical job role, I needed the evidence to do so. And it wasn't just the work that I had already started doing there, but the actual evidence that I knew statistical modeling, and not just because, at least in the accounting space, didn't really have much of opportunity to do that, and in the program management space as well, but I needed the physical evidence. And so doing that master's helped me have, as part of my 10 pages of evidence, to say, yes, put me in a technical job role to do so, and that really helps kind of build up her resume, is having that postgraduate education, depending what's the path you wanted to take. If you want to do, especially if you want to do a fork to a different career path, having that master's helps a lot, and having the actual evidence to take that path. And finally, looks like the last piece to talk about is mentor. Mentors, I think, are absolutely essential. I'm currently doing a transition to BI manager from a individual contributor to manager, and that's been the biggest piece for me, is having an actual mentor tell me what are the expectations of a manager, especially in the BI space, which is moving away from code into reviewing what people are doing and making sure we're on the right direction, and so on and so forth. And having someone actually tell me how it works is a lot better than me just trying to kind of figure it out on my own. So that's me. Off to you, Aaron.
Thank you, Victor. I think I'm going to use that too. You know, it's been awesome just listening to my colleagues here, their stories. There's like a piece of each story that resonates with me because I've experienced the same thing. So, I hope I'm not oversharing. Yeah, I have this mask on, so I feel like I can just tell you everything. You won't even recognize me. So I grew up in Compton, California. You know, at the time, it was like all about, drugs, gangs, everything that Eazy-E and Tupac told you about, I grew up around. And I grew up with the mentality of like survival mode, just making it home, just staying safe. And there wasn't much in the way of inspiration, growing up as far as my family. I was raised, my dad wasn't around, was an alcoholic, into drugs. My mom did the best she could to hold it together. And, she was a nurse. So the best I can come up with as far as dreams and goals was to be a doctor. And I went to, it's a pretty lofty goal, right? So I joined the Army. I thought, okay, let me join the Air Force and, see what I can do there. But the only problem was I tried to join the Air Force with an Army recruiter. So, so I ended up in the Army for 4 years as a medical specialist. And then when I got out of the Army, I kind of bounced around. I made a lot of bad decisions, and that kind of hurt my trajectory. But eventually, I landed as in a analytical role. Okay, I'm not gonna be too vulnerable, but there's a lot I'm not gonna share in that piece. But let's just say fast forward. I was an analyst at American Family Insurance, a risk management analyst, and at that time, an analyst was someone who pulled data from a system. You transformed that data using SQL, and then you did your analysis and put that in Excel, and you emailed it to somebody. And sometimes it will be like a PowerPoint presentation. So that was basically the role of an analyst. Pull data, transform data, display data, visualize data, and share your findings in your analysis. So I did that for about 11 years. And in the insurance industry and the healthcare industry. And then after that, I thought, well, I've been doing this for a while. I'm a little bored. And at the time, I was teaching myself how to program. So I went and I got pretty good at it. My first programming language was VBA, and I built a system for one of my companies that they had a team that was, let's say, it was a huge team. And what they were doing was pulling data off the system, doing some ticking and tying, and they were basically making a decision. It's really for like overpayments, do we refund this money back to the payer, or do we get to keep it? That was the decision they were making. And I went down there and I kind of looked at the process. I basically automated the whole process in Access and Excel using VBA, and got employee of the month. So I got bored with that. And at the time, I didn't have my education, and my director at the time said, you've done all these amazing things, but you're not going to go any higher than you are now without your education. And I thought it was enough to I had like an associate's degree, and that was just to get my paper, and that wasn't enough paper, So I went back for my, actually I had another experience where it was the first time in my career that I actually got like let go, and it's because I didn't have my education. I was, had this job in Bellevue, making really good money, and I thought my programming skills was gonna carry me throughout my goals, But there was a financial analysis that they wanted me to do, and I just didn't have the chops for it. And but I was like, basically, trying to be like, oh, but look at this fancy app I built. Nah, bruh, that's not gonna get it. So I ended up being let go, and that really got me. Like I said, man, I've never had this happen to me. So I went and I got my bachelor's in finance, and and then I began to see my career starting to take off. I was a lead software engineer at Pierce County for about 5 years. And there I started to actually, like I described to you how, as an analyst, I pulled data, transformed it, put it in Excel, and emailed it, or gave presentations. But at Pierce County, I began to actually build data pipelines using real traditional ETL tools. I learned how to build star schemas. I was their Power BI admin. I managed the whole tenant, and it was my job to go out to all the different departments or areas of Pierce County, different departments, and evangelize analytics. They had a Cognos solution in place at the time, and nobody was using it. So we went, and I was asked to go out and do some research to see what's the best solution for Pierce County, and then I recommended Power BI. And then we went with Power BI, and it was my job to go out to each department and say, hey, what data are you using for your department? What are you doing with it? Hey, this is how Power BI can help. And then as I began to talk with them, I realized that they were doing all these manual processes to process their data. And I said, hey, I can automate that for you. I could take that data, and everything you're doing with your data, I can automate it in a data pipeline to where it's refreshed every night. And all you have to do is go into your Power BI dashboard and review the results. And I did that for like 15 different departments, and it was like, it just took off like wildfire, right? I think that before I left Pierce County, the crescendo of my stay there was I got to present to Bruce Dammeier an analysis I did on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there were some very interesting findings that were there as far as recruiting and hiring. And he was very engaged, in that. And as a result of that, there have been some changes to the recruitment process of Pierce County. So, I came to a crossroad, okay? I have my analytics chops, I do my development, but, okay, should I go down the leadership path or should I go deeper into technology? So I had a mentor, and I met my mentor here at UW. Well, not here on this campus, but I've been attending various events, like every event that, I'm talking even happy hours. I went to the UW Commotion. They have all these events up there at UW Seattle. I went to just about everyone, and I met my mentor there. He was a keynote speaker, and then I waited until everyone kind of left him alone because he had all these people around him. And I walked up, hi, my name is Aaron. Will you be my video? So he gave me his card. He said, hey, I don't have time to talk right now, but give me a call, or send me an email. And I did, and he's a CEO of a venture capital firm, and he met with me regularly. He gave me books to read, he gave me advice, and he's African American, and that's why I was able to open up more about personal experiences that I had and things. But there's a Digital Analytics Association. They have these Developer Week where they have all these vendors come in and give presentations. I went to those. There's the Innovation Summit, again, at UW Seattle. There are various third-party hosted events like Microsoft, Amazon, different ones that I attended those. On campus, there was something called GoMap, but now it's been renamed to the Graduate Student Equity and Excellence Department. I will have to say that I did not think before I even started my program, I read about them. I said, wow, why do students of color need a safe space, right? And then I needed it. I was like, wow. So I actually reached out to this group during my graduate degree, and they helped me tremendously. They connected me with other students, like 2 PhD students, and they really helped me. They taught me that I can still be authentic. I can own my authenticity in an academic setting without feeling intimidated. And that really empowered me to be who I am and still be around people who maybe just don't get me, right? But that's not my responsibility for them to get me. I could be who I am. So I learned that. And then I decided to be a manager. I was a manager at CHI. I did it for about a year. And I began to realize, and as in talking to recruiters, that I had not worked with data at scale. I worked with a lot of data, worked with a lot of technologies, but not at scale. And I'm talking about like terabytes and petabytes of data. And that's why just recently I accepted this role at Amazon as a BI engineer. And what I do is I basically own the analytics for a customer experience. I'm trying to be careful. I won't tell you which one because I don't want, because my director basically gave me some instructions. So I want to be careful, but I'll tell you enough to where you can understand what I do. So there's a part of Amazon that customers use. I own all the analytics for that. So I work with the dev team to make sure transactions are logged that we'll use for analytics. And I basically say how many people used it, well, basically all the customer engagement, how many times customers engage with the customer experience. And then there are other metrics like click-through rates and things like that we analyze. And I own all that, like the pipeline from the beginning to the actual analytics. And then we have weekly meetings where I'm sharing how things have changed over time and then making recommendations there. But as Victor was explaining, it's not just an analytical function. It's also, you have to be kind of like a product management function and really understanding best in class, what other people are doing and making recommendations, based on the analytics and based on what you're seeing in the industry, how should we move forward? So you really, at Amazon, what I'm enjoying is have the opportunity to have an impact. So as far as my education, just in case you weren't clear on what I've done, I started with an associate's, just trying to get some paper on my resume, wasn't enough, got my bachelor's in finance, The reason why I did that is because I was taking some, in the insurance industry, I was doing some certifications in insurance, and the credits from those insurance certifications, it would have been quicker for me to get a finance degree than a computer science degree that I actually wanted. So I went for the finance degree instead, just to have that degree. And then I decided, I was really interested in data science, and when I was a software engineer, I decided to go out for my, I was actually wanting to go to get my master's in computer science, but this program, the MSBA, started, and they had everything that I wanted to get into, so I did that. After that, I graduated with the MSBA, I went and got from UW, the certification in big data technologies. I got that, and the reason why I got that cert is because I wanted to really understand, even though I built pipelines on my own, I wanted to understand how to work with things like Kafka and more like cutting edge technologies that I felt some of these companies like Amazon and others would be interested in. And as far as challenges, main challenge for me, a big one, is just feeling out of place. I worked in a lot of places where I was the only African American there. I was the only one. And it's like, and the people I work with, it's like I was the first person that they encountered of my background. So it's like we were just looking at each other like aliens. And so it's like, you know, and there are things like, how do you say this? So when someone is, what do they say? Well, let me tell you a story. I was having all these weird, like, what today they call microaggressions. But, and I reached out to the VP of at American Family. He was African American. He was getting ready to retire. And I wanted to talk to him because he obviously went through the same things I went through, but yet he was able to make it to his position. And I asked him the question. I said, have you ever, boom, 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 have you ever this? He said, yes, and worse. He gave me some advice. He said, choose your battles. He said, if I made an issue out of everything that someone said, or ignorant thing that someone said or did, and he said, that's what it is, it's ignorance. He says, I would not have made it to the level that I am today. And I've just taken that advice with me. And you don't get mad. So I look at ignorance as a sickness, and you don't get mad at sick people. Like you treat them, right? You don't get angry at them. You just treat them and you help them. And so that's kind of been my mindset. And I know there have been times like when I was ignorant about something, I wouldn't want someone to be angry with me. I want them to help me and treat me and you know. And so, and another piece of advice that I would give is, as far as the challenge of feeling out of place, I just focused on me. And I just focused on me and developing myself, being the best, and just try to perform. Because there's this energy out there that says an African American in certain industries has to perform to be 10 times better to be considered for things that others are just automatically considered for. And I just accept it as a challenge. And I just, like, Amazon has this leadership principle, learn and be curious and go deep. And that's just what I did, and that has worked for me. And another piece of advice I would give you to your point is, it's okay not to know what you want to do or be at first. These industries, these STEM careers are just vast, and it's okay not to know what you want to do at first. Just learn, be curious, find your passion as you go, and just enjoy the journey, and learn SQL. And that's me.
Okay, so I guess I'll just become MC up here because I just self-appointed myself. Thanks for everyone for sharing. There's a lot of insight there, and I can relate to what you just said too. There are many times when I would look around and suddenly realize that I'm the only person of color in the room. I'm like, wow, like for 2 years I've been here and I didn't know this. And I guess it's just focusing on what you're doing. And sometimes you end up in teams that are so welcoming and you just feel at home. And that's the fortune of it sometimes. We get lucky that way. So we'll take any questions, any comments from everyone else. Yes, I think there's a microphone over there, if you want to.
Hello? Yeah, fine. Yeah, let me first thank all of you guys and, for sharing your experiences and everything. I could relate to so much of your experiences, and I really appreciate you coming here and sharing your experiences. And yeah, like MSBA, I think a few of you are from MSBA, and I can see the workload. There's so much of workload in the course when you're doing it. But now that I've seen you guys sitting there, I feel like a little motivated, and I'm saying, yeah, this is going to be there, and this is going to be a passing phase. End of the day, I'm going to be sitting there probably next year. And I think I was very much, connected to what Aaron has said. And yeah, one of the questions I wanted to, I took a couple of mistakes in my life, the wrong decisions. And I learned a lot from them, in fact. And one thing I wanted to ask is, I have a background in the different fields. I'm majorly from aerospace. And coding is kind of rocket science for me. I have done rocket science, but coding is something of rocket science for me. And I used to be so afraid of coding. But that once I got exposed to coding, I realized that, in fact, I was pretty good at it. But my question to you, for the employees of Amazon, is that in any of the STEM programs, and how much of that background will be considered as experience if I'm shifting my field? Because aerospace is something quite different. If I'm going to be a business analyst in aerospace, that's a different case because I already have experience in aerospace. And if I want to become a BI in maybe accounting or finance or any other fields, and how much consideration that the employers would give to my previous experience.
So the question is how much of your background, like in aerospace, would be considered as experience? So yes, so I'll start and I'll let Victor finish because I can speak as like a recent candidate. I can speak as a recent candidate who accepted a role there, and I'll say all of your experience is considered, but not in the way you might think. Because I've met people who are excelling in various technical roles that, and you would look at their background and you would wonder how they got to where they are. I think largely they do look for some technical proficiency there, but part of me wonders how much weight they actually put on that, you know. And I think really it's like an attitude. Like they look at the leadership principles and how much they resonate with you, and I think that's maybe, and I'm just guessing, a bigger gauge as to whether or not you'd be successful at the likes of Amazon. I'll let you.
Yes, and someone, I do a lot of interviewing for Amazon. Everything Aaron said is 100% true. Like, it's basically a holistic look, right? Like, especially from a coding perspective, you don't necessarily need a master's or degree in coding specifically. It's more of, hey, here's my GitHub repository. If here's some projects I have. And depending on the role, there might be a tech bar for coding. Other roles don't. A BIE doesn't actually have a tech bar for coding, for instance. We do expect to know scripting and so on and so forth and how it all works, but there's no actual bar for it. But it's more holistic look at, do you have all the requirements? And then the biggest piece is the leadership principles, right? Like, do you actually kind of connect with, dive deep, which is kind of getting into the data, right? Learn and be curious, you love to learn, right? You have aerospace degree, right? That's a very obviously show of learn and be curious, and you can kind of talk about an example of that. At least that's the way Amazon looks at it. I know other companies look at it in kind of similar ways from their own principles perspective. But that's how you should look about it. Like holistically, like these are all the different experiences that make me who I am. And this is the direction I want to go. And here's the evidence for that. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly in that field. Like my first job at Amazon was a program manager, and I'd never actually had a formal title as program manager. So, yeah.
And I think I have a question for, Victor. If I'm looking for a BI role, and what would you suggest would be the two most important languages that I should be pretty acquainted with?
We're gonna do like a game show buzzer. Just I highly recommend SQL. And I'm just gonna I'm just going to tell you, like, when I was building data pipelines at Pierce County, they have these tools that abstract the SQL for you. So all you're really doing as you're building the pipeline is configuring widgets and connecting them, and the tool writes the SQL that runs on a database in the background. That's not going to fly at Amazon. You got to actually know. I mean, it might, but in my team, you actually have to write the SQL that does those transformations. So SQL is really important. Two things I'll tell you to focus on, and they're things I use every day, are how to use temp tables and CTEs, like common table expressions. Get really good at those. I use those like all the time, and from the knowledge of SQL that I had when I first joined to now, I would say those are the two things that I use a lot. So CTEs, temp tables, understand how to do those. And then I'll let you.
No, absolutely agreed. That's big. I'd also say Python pandas, specifically the pandas library, super big. I'll let you take over since you're technical, or TPM here.
Yeah, SQL. I guess everybody on this panel would be using SQL. So
Oh, look at me, I'm not.
You know?
I'm a different scientist.
So whatever field you are, I believe if you are doing anything on a computer, SQL is the basics of it. So even when I was a software developer, if I was a project manager, product manager, I have used SQL, and everything has to do with data right now. We are in a place where we are generating massive amounts of data and then trying to get insights out of them. Tools, I would say, keep on changing. Power BI, Tableau are the topmost right now, but they change according to companies and according to trends and time. But the basics that you get out of them, how to use them, are those skills which are transferable from one job to another. Those, I would say, you would focus on more. Data structures have been something that has helped me a lot in my career, understanding those because I interact with engineering team. So even if you don't know direct coding, like scripting, understanding like how pseudocode works, that is helpful for me. That has helped me understand even different applications, whether it be mobile application, whether it be data collection tools, whether it be actual trading applications that I was working on. SQL, data structures, pseudocode, basically understanding blocks of codes, and logic is something that I rely on a lot. So, yeah.
I can directly attest to all three of them, is that SQL is going to be key. Even if you have to use SQL, even if you have to learn it from a jumping off point, or if you don't have direct resources available to you, find an access database and learn the basics there, and then jump into additional resources that teach you the ins and outs of bigger databases that maybe Access can't do. But start somewhere. One of the things that Aaron spoke about was that there were many data packages where you just tie widgets together, and we have that same issue in my company, is where we have an ERP system where there's a big front end. You can build kind of like widgets together to be able to translate data for you. But when you're trying to dig deeper and get the data you need to be able to report a better result or to get more information to the owners, you need to dig deeper, and that's where SQL coding comes into play, is because sometimes those tools just aren't good enough.
Yeah, I think, thanks a lot. I think I'll pass the mic to.
Yeah, and one more thing I just really quickly wanted to add, at least from a BI perspective, something that I find incredibly valuable in any of the candidates I look at is an understanding of program management or just agile methodology. Just having an understanding of how a sprint works and everything, because that's how we conduct all the work that we do. And so when I have a candidate that just understands how to do some of just the basic agile development or just program management, is such a valuable tool to have, because that just means I can get that person onboarded faster. So just something I wanted to add. That's not technology, but still a really great thing to have just on your background.
Recruiting. Okay.
Anyone else with a question?
Probably.
Trish had a hand up.
So all of you spoke about your challenges, and thank you for all of that. One thing I didn't hear was any failures and how you learned from it. You all are amazing and brilliant. I think it might help at least the high school students that will be hearing this later, is how you got through any failures and how you rose above those, if there were any.
I got one I can share, and it's like on the job. I don't know if this is like an epic story. It's basically how I messed something up. But at Pierce County, there's this concept in databases called replication, and what it does, it just takes a copy of the production database and copies it to some other databases, which are then used for like things like reporting and stuff like that. And as I was beginning to learn how to build data pipelines, I had started to run this query that was pulling in this. I didn't apply the filters appropriately, or I think the join was the wrong type of join. And it start bringing in like all kinds of rows of data, and basically, yeah, I basically the lights just went out. Like I just broke I just broke the database, and the whole time I didn't even know it was me that it happened. So I'm just at my desk just doing. And meanwhile, people in the department are running back and forth like, "What happened? What?" You know? And I'm like, "Wow," you know. But I'm the one that caused all the ruckus. And then finally, it got to me, you know. And then they all come to me. They said, "Aaron, were you doing any work, you know, on this system?" Because I basically shut down, like the court wasn't even able to do anything. You know, just, so they tracked it down to me. And I said, yeah. And they said, you just basically broke replication. You just basically shut things down. And maybe it isn't as disastrous as I'm making it. I believe they had like a fail-safe, and you know, everything it quickly got back to where it needed to be. But the fact that I did what I did, or had the ability to, was crazy. Actually, and so what I learned from that is, as you during your learning process, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that are stupid. Like I don't know how else to put it, and it's just a part of the learning process. And it shouldn't be something that you allow to hurt your confidence. You know, you'll go on to do awesome things, but there will be times where you, even at your best, you do something that isn't the best. That's it.
For me, one of my failures was actually the first time I applied for business intelligence engineer within Amazon to transfer over was actually declined. I did not meet the bar to change into a technical job family. So that told me, oh gosh, what am I actually missing here? I thought I had everything, and I had to go back and spend the time with some other BIE folks and connect outside of my organization to figure out, well, what is it they're actually looking for, and actually spending the time, not just on my own, but building an actual document with all the artifacts of all the work that I've done, and do an additional 6 months of project evidence to say, hey, no, I'm actually a candidate that that raises the bar for the BIE. And so 6 months later, I then reapplied and did knock it out of the park. But the first time, I was actually declined to move into the technical job family. And so sometimes you just need to just pick back up and just keep working on it, and then get the help that you need. Like, you don't have to go at it alone. Is something I have learned a lot, is that you don't have to go at it alone. Like, people are always willing to help and happy to do so. So don't think you need to go at it alone, I think is the biggest thing I've learned.
People have shared quite nice personal failures. I would like to talk about team failures. So, back in India, when I was working as a software consultant, I was working with TCS for about 5 years. We were working on a client or a project which built trading applications for government stocks and bonds. And these are huge numbers. They are in crores. That's what we use for millions or billions back in India. And you get huge volume of these trades every day, the way you see here at New York Stock Exchange. So we were working on these applications, and there was supposed to be a new release that I was working on. I was the team lead at that point. And the application is a desktop application. So the way you send builds is send an actual setup or exe that runs on their systems. And this is a closed system where you cannot remotely go and just release the build. So we actually had transferred those EXEs on their systems, ran those, and the next day morning we are just waiting, okay, now this is the new release, we are gonna see massive amounts of orders coming in, so the release was supposed to speed up the trade application, so if we were processing 60 or 100 per minute, or that's very low actually, but 60 or 100 per second, we wanted to process like 500 trades per second. So we are expecting all of these, and we are on our database backend monitoring tables that, okay, now the orders would come, at 9 a.m., the market opens. There are no orders in the table. I'm like, what's happening here? Like, why aren't customers trading? Aren't they logging into system, or what's happening? And then we started, like 9:05, we started getting these phone calls. We are not able to get into system. We are not able to place any trades. And for a minute, we thought, what's wrong? We sent the right build. Everything is fine on the back end. All the processes are running. The database is going fine. And it took a while, at least 10, 15 minutes. And that's a lot for stock exchange or any trading application. And we realized that my team had actually sent a build which is pointing to testing systems and not the production system. And I'm laughing right now, but I wasn't.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I wasn't laughing back then. It was such a big shame. I was like, oh my God, that is such a petty mistake. And all you had to do just to change one variable in that build and send it again. But it took another 15 minutes, and losing 30 minutes in any trading application meant a lot. And then there was a whole leadership team waiting for me to go back in the war room and make that explanation of what happened, actually. So it was basically that we had tested, all the testings were done in mock properly, but in the end, there was some small change that needed to be made, and we sent that change without ticking all the checklists on the checklist before you send it to release, the UAT or the mock checklist. And that's how we ended up having trades in testing database instead of production database. So that was a major team failure, I would say. We didn't actually fail because of the work, but it was a small mistake, and tells me how you need to be patient with your work. Like, even though it's like your team is sitting on your head and telling you, make this change right now, send it urgently, it's so much urgent. You need to keep your calm, cool. They can wait. I had a team member who was very straight up authentic, I would say. He kind of answered back to the leadership team that you standing on my head is not going to make the code work faster. So let me do my work. So keep your calm, keep your cool, keep your process in hand, what you need to follow, and that's what I learned from that failure.
My failure I can think of, it was earlier in my career when I didn't fully understand the impact of everything that came in and out of the income statements, though I was practically responsible for reporting on them. Is that I made a mistake that was big enough to be material in the income statements. I forgot to make some pretty important accruals. It affected the income statement by maybe 5 to 10% is what I recall at the time. And then I prepared those financial statements and sent them off to my boss. The CFO at the time, he immediately looked at the bottom line without me even thinking about it and said, well, this doesn't look right. We were making way more than we should be here. What's going on? And then I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, I am so sorry, I messed this up. And I spent that night working till 8 or 9 p.m. just fixing the problem I had created, recreating the financial statement, sending it to my CFO, where hat in hand saying, I made a mistake, this will never happen again. I failed to follow certain procedures and processes that would have led me to see this problem. And it came to a big brouhaha where I had to actually then write a root cause analysis statement to my boss. That essentially it was a letter, kind of almost a letter of apology, as well as as well as that this is how this has happened and this is how it will never happen again. And it puts to paper what you are almost forced to commit to, and then you realize that it's okay to make mistakes, because my boss laughed it off at the end and said, you're lucky this didn't go to the board. And then second said, it's okay to make mistakes, just don't, just when you realize that you're making the mistake, learn from it and don't let it occur again. Because what bosses will typically look down on is that you can make a mistake and you learn from it, but if you don't learn from it and you make the same mistake again and then again, that's when they start to really question your ability to continue doing what they ask you to do. And then the last item that really applies to this is processes and procedures are there for a reason. This is one of those prime examples where I missed the process, I missed the procedure, and I failed to report the numbers correctly to my bosses. If I had followed the process and procedures, stayed calm, like she said, and instead of trying to rush a product out the door, I thought through all the proper impact of what that product would show to the supervisors, I wouldn't have run into that problem.
I make mistakes so many times in my work. I'm still searching my head to be like, which one can I point to? There's that fake it till you make it approach that we go into work with. I heard a lot of up here. We all have that, right? How you present yourself with confidence is probably one of my best traits, because my job every time is I want to know as much as there is to know about something so that I can have a conversation about it. And that's my attitude at work. But that can be a hamstringing pitfall as well, especially because people buy into that confidence and they trust it to a point where they don't review the work you did. And so sometimes you're just like, hey, people are like, hey, he knows what he's doing, he's got it together. And so I put together the material for our client meeting, and we show up for the client meeting, and I'm kind of just talking through the talking points as I'm passing out, the deliverable to the different the people who are in the meeting. And the big boss at the end of the table looks at it and he says, well, this guy that you said is supposed to be in this country, he's actually outside here. So why are you putting him in this country when he's just right here? And there was kind of just like that deathly kind of just silence in the room. And you could tell that everyone was questioning not that guy being placed in the wrong country on the report, but the credibility of the entire freaking report was being questioned. Like if this guy is placed in the wrong country combo, like what else have you done wrong in this, And so we basically tabled that, which was kind of a significant piece of the conversation. And we had to go back and kind of just do a full review of the whole document once again, just to make sure that everyone was aligned. Needless to say that my boss was really happy that we had to go through this process. No, he was not. And the hours that we had to put in to just make sure that the entire deliverable was reviewed again. And I think at that point, I went back to my boss. I said, basically, my learning point here is I just want to make sure that every time there's a deliverable that goes out, I need to get a second set of eyes on it. No matter how confident I've become in my job, how well I do it, there's always that little piece of detail that you missed that could cause a significant kind of just like expense to alleviate later on. So as I said, we constantly make mistakes, and to Matt's point, if you don't show, or if you don't learn from it or show that you're learning from it, then we're basically, you're kind of creating a problem for yourself in terms of just like how credible are you as a professional in what you're doing. And so it's very important to kind of just learn and say, okay, and even getting a second set of eyes, because there are a lot of things when we get so bogged down in our details, in the weeds, that we forget the big picture. And sometimes it helps to have someone just keep an eye on that big picture and kind of just inform where you are and how much you've done and what you've missed.
I know that STEM programs are pretty difficult ones. So my question for you is pretty much not from that background. I wanted to know, I know it's quite important for us to have the technical background, and it's quite easy to learn the technical things. Probably you can work hard for a couple of months, and you can get good at some software or some coding or some accountings or something. But I would like to know from you guys, one particular personality trait that you thought was very beneficial for you, and maybe a couple of personality traits that you think we as graduates that you are expecting us to have when we're applying for jobs or to survive in this multicultural environment. What personality traits that you would suggest us to work on, because that's something that we have to build up on experience, and it takes a lot of time to gain those.
See, so personality traits. See, because there's I know myself pretty well, but the way I think I'm being perceived by someone may not necessarily be the way they're perceiving me. But I'll say that one of my personality traits is I'm extroverted, but I am at the same time I am a bit of a loner. So I'm very selective. I learned that over time to be selective about who I give my energy to and who I'm around, because there's some people who are. Hope I'm not going too deep for you guys, but I'm just sharing. This is question and answers. So there's some people, and I'm not talking about in a workplace, just in general, that they're takers and they don't empower you. They don't feed into your that drive. Like if you're trying to excel, they're you don't have to. What I'm talking about. They're just a drag to be around. So I'm real selective about who I give my energy to and who I'm around. And I think that has helped me as far as where I want to work. When I join a team, when you're negotiating a salary or talking to an employer, they're selling you a position, and you have certain expectations, and they have certain expectations of you. If after you accept that role and you're in that role and you wait a minute, this isn't what you said, this isn't, you can then decide, hey, this isn't worth my time and I'm going to leave. And that's what I did. That's what I did. And I believe that has served me well, because I don't want to spend 20 years doing something that I just don't like, so that I think that has helped me.
I would say that a lot of workplaces celebrate the diversity of who we are as people, who we are as individuals, and I don't know if it's a fair answer to zero in on a specific personality trait, because what you're going to get is 5 different responses, because the workplace that we're in right now is fairly collaborative, and the question is what's the value add that you're bringing to the team. I used to have a boss that used to say, because I work in tax, they said, anyone can complete a tax return. Heck, we're training computers to complete tax returns, right? But the relationship aspect is something that you don't train anybody to do. And just being mindful of the colleagues and just how you relate to them ends up being a very key contribution to the team. And so I would say, in terms of personality trait, it's encouraged in this diverse culture that we work in to be yourself. But the question is, can you operate in a team? Can you be attentive to who you are and what your value add element is, and who everyone else in the team and their value add is? And once we figure that out, I think you are set up for success, you know, in that sense. I don't know if anyone.
I also have difficulties putting one particular personality trait. I think it's the whole holistic look of a person that makes you, valuable, unique. But some things that came into my mind when you asked that question. One was specifically related to learning, having that growth mindset. I don't think anybody over here would say that, oh no, after my graduate degree, I stopped learning. After my postgraduate degree, I stopped learning. I am still learning. I joined a company recently. It's been 6 months, and I am still, I get to work on a new tool after a few months, and I have to learn that again. So being curious, learning new things, trying out new things, that's going to take you and help you in the long run. And I think also one of your leadership principles, isn't it? Fail forward? Yeah. So when you try these new things, and when we were talking all about our failures, when you're failing, you're actually trying something new. So don't be afraid of those. You have to, accept those failures, be vulnerable, talk about it, self-reflect, learn from those, and again, keep that curious mindset of, okay, what did I learn from this? What's the next thing that is coming up? At any point, if you're getting stagnant in your growth, and that's particularly my personality, that if I'm doing the same repetitive work over and over again, I get bored. I need challenges. I need new things to work on or to look forward to next day. That's my drive, or that's what keeps me motivated.
I can say that just like with everybody else on here, it can't really key into one specific personality trait that drives me. However, what I can say is that directly to her point is being curious is what will drive a lot of your success. And it's not stopping your learning when you're finishing school, and it's when you're coming up upon a challenge, trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to take care of this challenge, or what's the and even with your daily activities and your daily tasks, looking at it from a critical eye and saying, okay, I'm doing it this way now, how can I make that more efficient? Because what happens is that when you take on that mindset, you develop new tools that will help you do things faster, and although that some people might joke that actually eliminates job security from the equation. No, it actually helps, because when you are making yourself more efficient, you're making yourself available to your bosses. They hand more things to you. You make that efficient, and then you raise your credibility little by just doing stuff like that. I think that's helped me, is just being more curious, learning how to do new things in a different way.
No, I agree. There we go. I was just going to agree. It's pretty much just a growth mindset. Having a curious mindset is one of the biggest things you could bring. Like, it's about bringing your authentic self, and part of that, in terms of growth, is just bringing that learn and be curious mindset.
So first of all, thank you all for sharing your experiences. And it was really insightful and motivate us to work more harder to achieve our goal and to be from here to there. So yes. So currently I'm an MSBS student, and we have a lot of things going parallelly. Like, we need to submit assignments, we have a lot of events going on, we have to practice our codings at home. So sometimes we juggle. So I want to know which area is more important to focus on. I know, should we focus on our GPA? Should we focus on our networking and attending the events? So what help us more in terms of, achieving our goal as for data analyst or business intelligence? Yeah, that's my question.
So you want me to raise your GPA a little bit? Is that what you're asking? No, I'm kidding. So my father-in-law said his grandfather, who died a long time ago, used to say, manage your pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. In a sense, it's like just focus on like the day-to-day and kind of those things. And I know it's a very, very big picture answer. It doesn't give you anything like, how do I take this home? What do I do with this? But I think sometimes, like GPA, I think I graduated here with a 3.93 GPA, 3.98 GPA. But it was because I always focused on just like the small things. I wasn't really big on GPAs and grades. If I got a bad grade, I would show up at the professor's office, and it wasn't because I want that A minus to be an A plus, or why the heck did you give me a D plus, or whatever it is. I think it was more of, hey, I got this wrong. How do I get it right next time? And I always came from it in that perspective of, hey, whatever grade I get, it doesn't matter as long as I don't understand what I'm learning, and that was important to me. And like when they started talking about coding, I glazed over, and you're talking about coding, so I'm going to glaze over the technical aspects and let them respond. But that's what I would say about GPA and stuff.
So he is absolutely spot on in that your focus shouldn't be on, at least from my perspective, on the number on the sheet that you get when you get your transcript. The focus should be on whether you learned something. The GPA will come naturally, and it's a great number to have on your resume. I'll be honest with you. When I'm looking at candidates, I do tend to filter them out because I get a ton of them, and I say, okay, this one has the higher GPA, this one has the graduated from here or from there. But after that, how else do you differentiate yourself? And that would be from showing that you learned something, not just from the GPA. I think the GPA will come naturally.
I totally agree with that. So I graduated with honors recently. I did not even know what honors was when I started studying. So that was definitely not my focus. GPA was not my focus. I tried to enjoy what I was learning. And again, being curious was something that I noticed that helped me, which subject I liked. Okay, I like more visualizations. I get creative there. Or I like Python coding or R coding. But whatever you feel that you want to, excel in, I would say. Doesn't have to be that GPA on your resume that will sail you through. But if you put your heart out into something, that will shine in your resume, whether it is your project, whether it is your volunteering project on the side, whether it is your job, part-time job that you're doing, or if it is a particular subject that you are researching into. And there are a lot of opportunities at Middlegard School. You can have your applied project as your best thing on your resume. You can have one of your subjects and work with one of your professors on a research paper that could, make your resume shine. It can be any one of those, not necessarily the GPA, and you get to choose that. What I felt got me through was getting into that flow of enjoying what I'm learning, and that kept me driving, and I didn't even realize at times that I was, hours spending time on a project because I was just enjoying it. The result came automatically.
Say that if you're working full-time, it's a challenge to really dig deep sometimes, and you find yourself just completing the assignments. I hope this doesn't sound like I'm piling more on you, but also, like, I used to joke about the third semester or third quarter of MSBA as like the divorce quarter. Like my wife, because my wife was like, I was basically had a desk in our room just working, having Zoom meetings and, so, but it's just, I would also say, you have to take care of yourself too. Like, remember to, take a break, like go for a walk, spend some time if you have a family with your family, and don't feel guilty about that, even if your grades suffer, because, because we're people, right? And we have needs. And then the other part is, what was that? Oh, I forgot. I guess I'm getting old. But yeah, that's really the big thing about not feeling guilty about taking care of yourself and managing stress well, and yeah.
Yeah. There we go. I think one of the things, at least from someone that does a lot of the reviewing, hiring folks, is that, yeah, there's a baseline technical level expected of each area, visualization, at least from a BI perspective, right? Visualization, analytics, SQL, whatever else it is. But I think especially at entry or junior, kind of like your first year's career, and even mid-career expectations is someone that's willing to learn, right? Like bringing in that you're willing to learn whatever the tools we have, right? Like I don't need you to necessarily know Redshift, which is our own SQL product. I just need to know that, hey, I know SQL and I'm willing to go in and learn your own product, right? Or, hey, I've used Tableau and I see you use Power BI. Like it's more of, no, I understand what the basics of visualization is and how you can apply it. Like I'm looking for application, not necessarily like, oh, I'm a top grade person or whatever. It's more of how can you apply it. That's what I look for.
Thank you so much. Like Aaron said, like many a times I feel like if I'm hanging around with my friends or I'm going out somewhere, somewhere in my mind it clicks what I'm doing, why I'm not studying, don't why I'm not going at home, why I'm not in front of my laptop. This all comes in mind, and yeah. But thank you for your answer.
So, wow. Thank you. I mean, I was blown away by your authenticity, by your candor, your sense of humor, and for volunteering to be MC. I was so inspired. I'm sure everybody else was. So this concludes our panel, but the panelists will be available to mingle for about 25 minutes if you would like to hang out with them. So thank you very much. Wow.